Hello and welcome back to the last episode of the Bielsa Stand Season 1. That is correct. This is the last episode of Season 1 of the Bielsa Stand. We haven't done a podcast for a while, so we are back. Hope everyone is well, and let's get straight into the podcast. Obviously, since I last spoke to you all, Leeds United have been relegated to the Championship. Obviously, Leeds losing 4-1 in Lucas Moura's testimonial match at Ellen Road, where he scored a fantastic fourth goal, dribbling past basically all of our players and just sliding it in and letting him score for his last match for Tottenham Hotspur. So yes, that confirmed Leeds to be relegated. Obviously, Everton won their game, so they stayed up, and Leicester also won their game. However, because of Everton's result, Leicester was also relegated, as well as Leeds United and obviously Southampton. So since it's the last episode of this season and obviously the Premier League season has finished, I thought I'd do a review of the season and I'll look back at my early season predictions and see how right or how wrong I was regarding them. So let's start off with player of the season for Leeds United. I'll probably have to say Rodrigo, top goal scorer. He actually had probably his best season in a Leeds United shirt. However, we did get relegated. Tyler Adams, you could argue to be up there as player of the season. However, injuries affected him and he didn't play the last few months, of the season. As well as Sinisterra, he could have easily been player of the season if he was fit, because he contributed when he was fit, scoring goals and assisting. However, he was injured a lot of the season. So yeah, player of the season would have to go to Rodrigo Moreno. And talking about Rodrigo Moreno, congratulations to him and Spain for winning the Nations League last night. So he's a champion of the Nations League. So well done, Rodders. Next up is best young player for Leeds United this season. I think it's between two players, if I have to say, Gnonto and Somerville. Somerville had a purple patch, obviously, just before the World Cup, scoring, I think, 4 games in a row. Obviously, scoring the win against Liverpool at Anfield under Jesse Marsch. However, I think Gnonto has contributed more. So I'll probably have to say Gnonto just for young player of the season, then Somerville a close second regarding that. They are two best mates. I don't know if I said last time, Gnonto's actually passed his driving test, so congrats Gnonto on that. Next up is game of the season. Now for me, 2 matches come in mind. It is under Jesse Marsch, believe it or not. I would have to say 3-0 to us against Chelsea at Ellen Road. A complete performance, nearly probably one of our best performances of the season. Or the other match would have to be Liverpool at Anfield, where we won 2-1. However, I think Meslier did play a big part of that, and I think we were fortunate to win that, you could say, even though Meslier had a worldie. So I'm going to go for the 3-0 against Chelsea for the game of the season. Next up is flop of the season. You could give it to most of the squad for this one. I'm going to have to say Weston McKennie. He came in January and he didn't really do much. Obviously, he had the assist against West Ham, with his long throw and Rodrigo scoring. But I mean, apart from that, Weston McKennie didn't really contribute to our season. I mean, you could argue Firpo being flop of the season, like having a bad season, worst player of the season. However, Firpo did have a purple patch for about 2 or 3 games. That's why I haven't chose Firpo. You could say Meslier again. Meslier during the back end of the season had a woeful time. His confidence was down. He obviously was dropped for Joe Robles under Sam Allardyce, which Sam Allardyce has now left the club, and Leeds United are currently looking for a manager. But as I say, I think disappointment of the season has to go to Weston McKennie. Now, next up is going to be quite a funny one. Manager of the season for Leeds United. There are 4 candidates for this one. There's Jesse Marsch, Scabala, Javi Gracia, and Sam Allardyce. Who was probably the best out of the bad bunch? Oh, you know what? You could argue Javi Gracia. I mean, he got some good results in the short time as he was manager. Obviously, that Crystal Palace game went downhill, and then since then we didn't do much. Sam Allardyce had a very tough job. We played well against Newcastle and City, but those matches against West Ham and Tottenham, we didn't get a result. And then Jesse Marsch obviously had a couple of good results against Liverpool and Chelsea, as I've previously mentioned. He obviously won against Wolves at home as well. And then you obviously have Michael Scabala Scoobs, who was manager for the Everton game and the 2 United games, Manchester United, where he did okay. I mean, it was his first proper go as a manager. So I have to say, either Javi or Jesse. I'll probably have to go maybe Jesse. I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest. They were all rubbish, the managers this season. I wouldn't have them back this season to managers in the Championship. So I say none of them, to be honest. But if I had to pick one, maybe Javi just over Jesse Marsch. So now let's go over my predictions from earlier on in the season. I think this was the 3rd episode, so if you feel free to listen to it and see what I had to say. But basically I said Jack Harrison would contribute the most goals for Leeds United this season. I don't think that was true, to be honest. I think Rodrigo actually did. I think Harrison was probably 2nd or 3rd, maybe after Rodrigo's or Sinisterra. Maybe he was above Sinisterra, but Rodrigo's contributed the most goals to our season. Jack Harrison had an okay season, again, ups and downs. Let's be honest, he got his new contract, and then since then he didn't do much, just like Pascal Struijk did. He got a new contract around Christmas time, didn't he, Pascal? And then since then he's had a woeful second half of the season. I mean, he also had a woeful first half of the season. It just wasn't his season for Pascal. But yeah, that was that prediction. So flop of the season, I actually said Luis Sinisterra, and you could make a point that he was kind of flop of the season because he was injured the majority of it, and we didn't have a fully fit Cine since the beginning of the season. There were reports that he was training on his own throughout the season as well, so you could argue Sinisterra. And I think out of all our summer signings, I think you would say Cine was up there for flop. I think also Mark Crocker had not exactly the best season. However, if you're talking about all the players throughout the season, even including the players that came in January, I would say Weston McKennie was flop of the season. Obviously, at the time of recording last summer, we didn't know that Weston McKennie would be joining us in January. Well, I didn't know. I don't know if the people at Leeds United did. But yeah, I think Weston McKennie was flop, as well as Sinisterra due to his injuries. Whoa, wait a sec. How can I forget Brendan Aronson? I got that absolutely wrong. Sinisterra was not flop of the season, actually. Brendan Aronson, I mean, he had an okay start. I mean, that pass in the friendly against Callery to Bamford obviously did well. I think he had one goal this season, I think, against Chelsea. I mean, he only contributed once to Leeds United goals this season, but he has to be flop of the season. I mean, he had an okay start, but then during and after the World Cup, after the World Cup, he was woeful. Let's be honest, he didn't do anything. He just kept on falling over. So I got that absolutely wrong. Brendan Aronson was flop of the season for Leeds United. Breakout star of the season. Guess who I guessed? It wasn't Nonto or Summerfield. It was the one and only Joe Gelhardt. And let's be honest, he was nowhere near breakout of the season. I said he was a terrific talent after signing his contract with us last summer, like an extension. But no, let's be honest. I said actually he'll score about 10 goals for us this season. That didn't happen. Obviously, the beginning half of the season, I don't think he really contributed anything. Then Sunderland bought him in on loan to partner Ross Stewart, who actually got injured when Joffrey joined them, and then I think Joffrey only scored about 2 goals for Sunderland throughout his loan move. Obviously, Sunderland did reach the playoffs. I watched the semi-finals of the playoffs, and Joffrey, you know what, he runs around a lot, but he didn't really do much, and that's what a lot of Sunderland fans were saying to me. Joffrey is a player who really tries hard. He's a hard worker. He'll run for the ball and really get into the game, but he doesn't really do anything else. Like, he doesn't really score goals, he doesn't really assist. So I think Joffrey was probably a disappointment for Sunderland this season. He didn't have the best loan spell. He obviously didn't do that much for Leeds this season as well. So I was totally wrong. Obviously Nonto, I would say, was breakout star of the season. When I recorded the prediction episode, I don't think we had signed Nonto at that time, but Nonto had done well. Somerville also did alright. He kind of broke into the squad this season as well. So you could either give it to Somerville or Nonto, but I'll give it to Nonto for breakout star. And to show how off I was with that prediction, I actually said that Joffrey Gelhardt would be our top goal scorer of the season. How wrong was I? I think also in the episode I did mention that Patrick Bamford wouldn't have a good season and that he'll probably get injured, which kind of was right. Obviously, the back end of the season, he had big opportunities missed. He had that penalty where, who was it, against Newcastle or West Ham? They saved it. It was against Newcastle, that's right, because we were 1-0 up. And Nick Pope saved it. And if we went on 2-0 up against Newcastle, who knows if we would have stayed in the league. Then obviously that missed against Leicester, but I don't blame the relegation on Bamford. It's the whole squad. The whole squad hasn't been good enough throughout the season. So yeah, we deserve to be down and playing back in the Championship. So a flop of the season for the whole Premier League, I said Mr. Erling Haaland, treble winner Haaland. I said he'll be flop of the season. I said this season he'll need time to adapt in the Premier League. How wrong was I? That was an awful take from me. Treble winner Haaland, top goal scorer in the Prem. Did he beat the most goals in a season or something in the Premier League? Absolute monster Haaland is. Absolute terrific player, world class, and he wins the Premier League, he wins the Champions League, he wins the FA Cup, all in his first season for Manchester City, and so did Calvin Phillips. So Calvin Phillips, Leeds United's ex-player, is a treble winner, even though he contributed as much as I did, which was nothing. Let's be honest, Calvin Phillips didn't really contribute. And I was listening to Jack Grealish interview, and he said in his first season when he won the Premier League, he didn't feel like he deserved a medal because he didn't contribute. However, this season he thought he had, because he had contributed towards City's fantastic success for this season. So I wonder if Calvin Phillips is just happy that he won, or like he's also a bit like, oh, I didn't really contribute, like, do I really deserve this? It'd be interesting to know what he's thinking, but I mean, he probably doesn't care. He's on a lot of money. Calvin Phillips, he's a treble winner. He went to City for those reasons, to win trophies and to go probably become much richer, which he's already had. So fair enough to Calv on that. I also predicted that the newly promoted teams, all three of them, would go straight down back to the Championship. How wrong was I? They all secured safety in the Premier League. I think that's the first time in a few years. Obviously, Leicester, Leeds United and Southampton took those relegation places. But yeah, again, another prediction where I absolutely messed up. So regarding top four predictions, I said City would win the league, which they did. That was a pretty obvious one. I said Liverpool finished second, which I think they finished fifth. They didn't get Champions League football. I then said Tottenham Hotspurs would finish third and Chelsea to finish fourth. Chelsea had such a bad season. I think they finished about probably 12th or 11th by the end of the season. I can't really remember. Obviously, Spurs was in the Champions League places throughout the majority of the season, but then they sacked Conte and it all went downhill, and they had an awful season, let's be honest, to them. So yeah, Spurs didn't get top four, neither did Liverpool or Chelsea, so I only got one right. Obviously, top four was City. Then it was who finished second in the Premier League? It wasn't Newcastle. I think maybe it was Arsenal. That's it. Arsenal finished second. Then it was Newcastle and Manchester United, or Manchester United and Newcastle. Who knows? Who cares? But that was the top four for this season. And regarding my Chelsea take, as I said, they'll have a good season. Thomas Tuchel will stay for this season because he's a great manager. He won the Champions League. Obviously, he did get sacked earlier on. He's now the manager of Bayern Munich, which he won the league with them on the last stage due to Dortmund drawing, I think. So, yeah, Chelsea. I said a lot of people sleeping on Chelsea, and they were right, and I was wrong. Chelsea had a woeful season. They obviously invested a lot. It didn't work out. They bought Frank Lampard back as interim manager. It didn't work out. They obviously had Potter as well throughout the mid-season, and again, it didn't work out. So, yeah, Chelsea was probably, out of the teams, had the most disappointing season in the Premier League. I also said that Arsenal would have an okay season. They had an excellent season, let's be honest. They were top of the league for most of the season. They obviously slipped off by the end and finished second, like with 10 points behind City or something. But let's be honest, the vast majority of the season they were excellent, and they had a great season under Mikel Arteta. I also predicted in the Champions League final it'd be City versus Liverpool, with Liverpool winning. I was wrong with that. Even though I said City would be in the final, which they were, and City actually won this year. So, yeah, treble winners to City, one of the best teams the Premier League has ever seen. I'm going to say it here, and it's going to be controversial, but I think Pep Guardiola is still overrated. I don't class him as probably the top 3 managers ever in the Premier League. I would say that's Wenger, I would say that's Jose Mourinho and Ferguson. I think... Look at Pep. Throughout his career, he's been at top teams, Bayern, he's been at Barcelona, he's been at City. He's only just won the Champions League at City after all these years. He hadn't won it for 11 years, let's be honest, Pep. So I still think he's overrated, to be honest. Look, he's a top manager. He's probably one of the best managers in the Premier League at the moment, as well as Klopp and Arteta. But... look, he's got all that money. He has such a good squad, and I think if he managed, let's say, I don't know, a mid-table team, or even like a team like Fulham, or let's say Brighton, would he do much? I don't know. Probably not. But yeah, that's my say on Pep. Now we've gone through all my predictions that I had at the beginning of the season, and my rewards of player of the season and all that kind of stuff. Now let's go over some Leeds United news over the last few weeks. Rajasani has sold his share of Leeds United to the 49ers, so 49ers are 100% owners, I think, in Leeds United's ownership. I think the EFL needs to still confirm it and all that kind of stuff, but it's basically gone through. Rajasani's ditched just to go to Sampdoria, a Serie B team. Thank goodness for that. Good riddance, Rajasani. It was time to go, and he's finally gone. Regarding manager news, I mean, there's a lot of talk of Farke coming in with Stuart Webber as director of football in the next year, but Farke's probably favourite. Names like Parker has been linked to Leeds United, Corberan. A lot of Leeds fans actually want Areola to come in. I can't see that happening. So it'll be interesting to see in the next week or so which manager will come in and manage us in the Championship. Obviously, we have appointed Nick Hamilton or something, Hamill or whatever, as interim director of football, or that kind of role, to help us get players in and out. So that'd be interesting to see how he does. What does that mean for Stuart Webber coming in as director of football eventually? Not a clue. He's obviously leaving Norwich. I don't think he would be a good appointment. He's obviously quite controversial, quite outspoken, like Victor Orta. We can see how that went. And I don't think he did the best job at Norwich, to be honest. I mean, he got relegated with Farke a couple of times. So, yeah, I mean, would I personally have Farke as well as manager? I think he's okay for the Championship, but from the Premier League, I think we'll have to have a new manager if we get promoted. But I think he would do okay for us in the Championship. Obviously, that's also depending on the playing squad that Leeds United will have next season. There was links to Steven Gerrard as well. Obviously, Steven Gerrard looks like he'll be going to Saudi Arabia, as well as half of these world-class players are. Obviously, Benzema's moved there, Kante's moving there, Neves from Wolves is moving there, Koulibaly from Chelsea looks like he'll be moving there. So loads of players linked to Saudi Arabia with managers. And look, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo said earlier in the season that Saudi Arabia will be a top 5 leagues in the world. And you know what? They're investing a lot. It reminds me of what happened in the Chinese league the other year when they were bringing Tevez there and Oscar and all those kind of players. Obviously, it didn't work out for the Chinese leagues. It'll be interesting to see what will happen with the Saudi league, but they are investing a lot. They are paying these players an awful amount of money. You know, Benzema, how much is he on? He's 500 mil? I don't know. I'm just guessing. You know, Kante's on 100 mil for 4 years, was it? So these players are on ludicrous money to play in Saudi Arabia, and they're trying to make it competitive. Obviously, Nuno won the league there. Helder Costa, Leeds United's player, officially won the league under Nuno as well. Will Helder Costa go back? He'll probably want to. He'll probably still want to play with Benzema and Kante. So it'd be very interesting to see what will happen there. And obviously another name linked to Leeds United's manager role is West Brom's manager Carlos Corber, and obviously a lot of fans want him in because of the Bielsa links, and he's been at Leeds United before. Personally, I would stay away from him for this season. I don't think he's proven yet. I mean, best out of the bad bunch would probably be Farker, you know. He's been promoted in the Championship with Norwich twice. So I say just get him in for at least the season and just see how it goes at this rate. So yeah, that's really the news. I mean, nothing really much has been said about transfers in and out. Yeah, obviously Mark Rocker is linked to a loan move to Real Betis, but I mean, apart from that, there hasn't been any official, any moves yet in the Leeds United sphere regarding transfers. Tyler Adams apparently wants out. Rodrigo was linked to a Real Madrid move. Obviously, I don't think that's probably not going to happen. He probably won't go to Madrid because Madrid has just loaned in a striker, Jokan or something. I don't know how you pronounce his name. So yeah, he's been linked. Meslier came out in the interview saying what he had to say about being number one for Chelsea. I don't know. And actually, there has been news. Mendy looks like could be going to Saudi Arabia, the Chelsea keeper. So could that possibly mean that Chelsea will go in for Meslier? Probably not. I don't think he'd be number one. So it'd be interesting to see regarding that. Other players wanting to move. Brendan Aronson, I think, wants to move out. Probably half of them wants to. Apparently Rasmus wants to stay. Fair enough to Rasmus. No one else will want to. Firpo wants to move. He's been linked back to Real Betis. Joe Robles and Forshaw's contract has run out. I mean, they were in the retained list or whatever. But apparently they've been invited to training, so it'd be interesting to see if Robles and Forshaw will stay. Obviously, there was news that Robles tried to encourage Firpo and Mark Rocker to go to Real Betis. Obviously, he's been at Real Betis before, so has Firpo. Rocker's obviously played in Spain before for Espanyol, then he went to Bayern, then came to us. So I don't expect to see Mark Rocker in a Leeds shirt next season. But that's really it for this episode, and thank you for listening to me throughout the season and season 1 of the Bielsa Stand. Thank you very much. I hope to speak to you all soonish, maybe. Let's see how summer goes and the transfer window goes and news goes. To be honest, I've had to disengage with Leeds United and football lately. I mean, after these last 2 years, I just needed a break from Leeds United and football, and that's why I haven't really posted a podcast in a while, because when we got relegated, I was just relieved that it was over this season, because it was a woeful season and I just needed a bit of a break from just football in general, but also specifically Leeds United. But yeah, it looks like I'll be back, so yeah, thank you everyone. Remember to share it to your favourite footballer. Check us out on social media, and I'll catch you all very soon. And wait a second. Last piece of news that I absolutely forgot was that Tyler Roberts is linked on move to Birmingham City, I think, under Mel. So the one and only Tyler Roberts, our superstar of Leeds United, looks like he'll be leaving us to go to Birmingham City.